Hello everyone, welcome to Diagnostics by Rick. Today on 10-Minute Diagnostic, we will be looking at a 2007 GMC Acadia. But today's episode is a little different because the vehicle itself doesn't matter. The lesson is actually on understanding the logic behind a trouble code. When I arrived at the shop, the owner was not there. So one of his techs handed me the keys, and when I asked, what am I diagnosing on the vehicle, he looked at me and said, the check engine light is on. It only took me a couple of minutes to diagnose this, and in a moment you'll see why. So I finished and I started on the second vehicle that he had for me. While working on the second vehicle, the tech comes over and says, hey, sorry, they didn't want the check engine light diagnosed. They wanted the track control light diagnosed. Apparently the track light occasionally comes on while driving, and that is the vehicle owner's concern. It was not on, nor was there a code stored when I first looked at the vehicle. I wasn't too upset because I'd not spent too much time diagnosing the check engine light before they asked me to move on to the track control light. So I connect to the ABS system, and it has C0561, System Disabled, Information Stored, Invalid Serial Data Received. I don't know why engineers chose the wording they chose for this code. In all data it says, system disabled, invalid serial data received. Even when looking up code set criteria, it says the electronic brake controller received an invalid message from another module over the GM LAN. Looking at another section under the diagnostic process for this code, it talks about connectors, wiring, and testing for intermittent or poor connections. And even under verification test, steps 3 and 4 really make it sound like a bad data packet or some kind of communication fault. It does give a warning in step 6, do not replace the electronic brake controller for this code. We'll talk about why in just a moment. Step 1 does give us some good information where it says, diagnose any other vehicle DTCs first before attempting to diagnose C0561. But it's not clear as to why. Don't worry, we're getting there. There are more clues in the circuit description where it says the electronic brake controller receives messages from other modules over the GM LAN, which are needed to perform the ABS functions. But it still never comes right out and says in plain English what this code is all about. A better code definition would have been fault in other control module, because that's really what this code's all about. The track control system needs data from other modules, especially the engine, trans, power steering. It needs to know throttle position, engine RPM, vehicle speed, what gear it's in, steering angle, etc. And if there's a fault in the engine or the trans that can affect torque calculations, then the track control system will be disabled and it'll turn on the track control light. So really, it's just saying, go check for codes in other modules and fix those. It's not that the data is invalid or that the brake controller can't understand what is being said to it. It's just that the module supplying the data has set codes for something, and the ABS module doesn't trust the data that's being sent to it because it knows that that module sees a fault within its own systems. And even though number 6 clearly says don't replace the control module for this code, I have seen it done more than once. In fact, the last time I saw a similar code was on a 2014 Chevy Impala at a Chevrolet dealership. The dealer had replaced the ABS controller and the power steering controller because of U0415. The definition is the same, invalid serial data received. But this time the code was in the electronic power steering control module. The issue was a bad wheel speed sensor that they knew about, but decided not to replace it until they got the communication fault fixed. The ABS module had a code for the wheel speed sensor, so because of that, the PCM is basically saying, get the ABS problems fixed so I can trust the data sent to me by the ABS controller. So I'll show you a quick presentation on what was actually wrong with this Acadia. But the real lesson here is what we just talked about. With any code, make sure you understand what the code definition really means and what the code set criteria are. The information is sometimes misleading, and it may require more investigation than just reading the code definition very quickly. So after all that, it turns out that I had actually diagnosed the correct thing when I first did the check engine light. So when they came back and asked me to look at the track control, the hardest part of the job was already done. In the PCM, I had multiple codes, all pointing at intake and exhaust cam positions. Code P0011, 0014, 21, and 24. So basically timing for all 4 cams. I didn't save a screenshot when I first got there, but the P0011 did reset rather quickly and I captured it. I'm sure the others would have also set had I given it enough time, but I chose not to continue running the engine for very long. In data, I pulled up the CMP actuator data. At idle, it looks okay, but when I give it some RPM, the variance starts to go high, especially in the exhaust cam bank 1. Notice the scale for this PID goes up to 25 degrees along the left side. Just below it, bank 2, it only scales up to about 7 degrees, and the intake cams only scale to 3 and 6 degrees. This issue wasn't just affecting this one cam. If I'd ran the engine longer, I'm confident that all 4 cams would have had similar looking data. The other thing I noticed was a significant amount of engine noise when I raised the RPM, which is why I decided to shut it off and stop running the engine. With all 4 cam sync codes and engine noise, this sounds like an oil pressure problem. And yep, I would say that's a problem. It's not even touching the stick. So, of course, I put on the invoice, track control light is on because the vehicle needs an oil change, which drew a very strange look from the shop owner before I explained to him what was going on. Well, that was a quick 10-minute diagnostic, and I hope that helps save at least one person a little bit of time when dealing with code C0561 or a similar code on a GM vehicle. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. If you want to help support the channel, you can do so through Patreon. I'll put a link to my Patreon page in the description below. Thanks everyone, and have a good day.